everyone. Welcome back to JP's Budget Collecting for another episode of the Indie Show. We are back talking Black Hammer, and we're only 12 minutes late from my pushback 15. I give them 15 minutes because I know their hour-long show is never an hour. I give them 15 minutes, and then we're still 12 minutes late on the 15 minutes. But we're here, and, you know, John actually made it.
I was first.
We're first. Daryl popped in, and then the other person, we were here for like an extra 5 minutes while we were waiting for this guy who apparently took a nap or something in between. I don't know.
Hey guys. I'm ready.
You're ready. I like it. So yeah, tonight we are talking more Black Hammer. We're talking a little Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy.
Nice hardcover there, JP. Nice.
Yeah. So this came out like last month, I think,
or
maybe end of October, I think. When this hardcover. So we're almost through all the hardcovers. So I don't know what I'll do when we get past this one. If I'll wait or what I'm gonna do. But so impressions on Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy. I'm gonna make John go last.
You're not even gonna talk to the chat and say hello to the chat.
Oh, I guess it's good.
What kind of a show do you run here?
A terrible one. It's a terrible one. Kelly's here. What's going on?
Kelly.
DT is back. Somebody making excuses for a show starting super late. You know.
I don't know. Who's that though? Whose channel they were on? Jeez.
Yeah, well, I don't know what's going on. Kitty says hello.
Kitty.
All right. So Justin, what did you think of Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy? That John prepped us going in, and it's the Batman and Robin of the Black Hammer universe. What did you think?
Yeah, I was gonna say I love Batman and Robin. No, yeah, this is great. I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it. I definitely, Batman and Robin vibes for sure. Obviously, the story is a bit, twisted in the situation and everything, but a lot of things resemble that. I also got kind of like Punisher type vibes as well. With Skulldigger. So definitely more violent than I was expecting too, which I don't know why. I guess I just wasn't expecting much violence in this, even though we've seen it in other books. But the skull, especially like smashing skulls, was quite in your face. So I was like, okay, let's bring it on. So yeah, just general
Batman, not Batman.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, right. So yeah, ultimately had a lot of fun with this one, and really liked the artwork as well.
Nice. Daryl, what do you think about this one?
Yeah, if this was Batman and Robin, this was like the not the good Frank Miller Batman, but the all-star Batman Frank Miller, but better. I thought it was more like, what if Punisher got a sidekick? Is what I thought.
Yeah.
For me, my thought was it was because they kind of give the origin of Skulldigger. I was thinking more like Red Hood, if he hadn't reformed, getting a sidekick is like a little bit of, maybe a little closer to that in terms of.
I can see that too. Yeah.
But all right, John, we'll let you go.
You barely said anything. All right.
This is the last one you've read.
Yeah, I have not read past this. This is where I stopped at this point. This was the furthest trades that had been published, and so I had I read this one. I kept buying the other trades, but I was like I had basically read everything up to this point and kind of been obsessed with Black Hammer for like the better part of like 6 months, just reading it all.
You obsessed? No.
And making videos. Yeah, it worked out. For me, this is one of my. I would put this in my 5 favorite Black Hammer trades. I just really think it's interesting. I think it's well put together. It's the best single like standalone. Like you don't need to know anything about Black Hammer, and you can pick this up and totally understand every part of what's going on here. I love the universe that they craft here. It gives me a ton of throwbacks. Gotham Central, Year One, Red Hood, Under the Red Hood. Like I just feel like I get a ton of like great homages, you could say, to some of my favorite Batman stories. And it all just clicks for me. I think it's just a whole lot of enjoyment I got out of it. And rereading it was just as good for me. I just really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So that's Grim Jim, who's kind of their Joker, hobgoblin, or, goblin kind of guy. Yeah. So for me, the last time we discussed maybe my least favorite of the Black Hammer stuff in the Black Hammer Justice League.
Okay.
This one is, I don't think it's my favorite, but it's up there. It's one of the better ones I think that we've talked about. It's probably top 2 or 3, maybe the top one that's not main Black Hammer. I'm trying to think what of the world of Black Hammer would go higher. Maybe
I still like Dr. Andromeda. That's a top one for me.
I need to read that one. That's the one I haven't read.
Oh yeah, come
on.
on.
Dr. Andromeda wouldn't rank that high for me. I was thinking maybe just like the
Sherlock Frankenstein.
Yeah, maybe the Sherlock Frankenstein, maybe Barbalian, maybe those, but I think that's it.
Like, for me, it's like obviously of the main universe stuff that I think usually get would rank a little higher. But as far as Red Planet and Skulldigger are right up there for me.
I think that's probably where I'm at as well.
That's fair.
So let's dig into this a little bit, into my giant book. We start with a very, classic Batman here. Orphan kid, dead parents in an alley, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what did you think about how this kicks off here, Justin? We'll let you go again.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely even the way things were written out was, I just read Year One recently for the first time this year, and so just some of that, the alleyway and all that, everything else, just kind of got those vibes. And then, like I mentioned before, like the skull coming in and literally cracking skulls was like, okay, this is that. That's what this, that's where we're going with this comic. I was not expecting it at first, but I liked it. Really interesting use of the weapon that he uses, Skulldigger there. So even just the blood. Yeah, seeing the blood when he puts the skull in his back pocket, that's what really, And when he puts the skull in the back pocket, you just see blood all over it. It's really, really good. And then, of course, the parents, laying in the background. So, just gives you that general idea. Like, okay, I see where this is kind of going. I assume we're gonna get like a Robin type, vibe if he, goes with him, and go from there.
Yeah. What about you, Daryl? What do you think of this classic Batman orphan child opening here?
It was good, but it was, kind of a little, I've seen this before, and you're just kind of going through it relatively quick. I like that. There's something I want to say about the artwork in this. It's like, I like it in its simplicity, right? But it doesn't ever blow me away. I don't know how to describe that. Exactly. It's like, I like it, but
it's functional.
Yeah, but there's the stylistic things, like the page that JP showed where half the page was black and white. That one. Yeah. And the other half is in color. I thought that was an interesting stylistic choice because they don't overdo that. And when it lands, it's like you feel like there's some impactful thing happening in that moment.
Which gives me a Sin City vibe, those panels. If anybody's a Frank Miller Sin City fan, there's definitely sequences like that. Even the word chunk in that piece is almost in Sin City font. It's like for me, it just gave me, and obviously Sin City is a lot of black and white. So it just gave me vibes of that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of Frank Miller influence in this whole story, from the Batman parallels.
I was going to say, did you notice at some point they mentioned the street corner is Miller and Jansen?
Yeah.
Frank Miller and Klaus Jansen.
Usually,
yeah. So at one point they mentioned that the butcher shop is on the corner of Klaus and Jansen.
I remember the part where they mentioned the corner, but
sorry, Miller and Jansen.
Right. Yeah. I remember the part where it mentioned that, but I didn't I don't know. I guess I was just trying to read it so quick to get it.
No. I didn't. I don't know that I noticed it the first time, but I definitely, I wanted to mention it this time.
Yeah, but I could definitely see the Red Hood parallels with because he's not a billionaire with his bat cave. He's in the bottom of a butcher shop with literally just the TVs tuned into all the news stations of the city. So there's a very Batman on a budget feel to it.
Right.
Yeah, this isn't like I said, the rich man's Batman for sure. John, what about you? What do you think of this opening here? Our introduction to Skulldigger and
if the biggest complaint that I've got about this book is that it is that I can see where things are going because I've read enough Batman, like that's probably the only flaw to it, is like I love I know that what's going to happen in some cases, like clearly this Batman Robin setup here, but what I love about it is the blender threw in all that Batman stuff, but when you add that special sauce that's Black Hammer, what comes out is obviously very twisted. I think was the word Justin used at the top of the show. And I love that part of that's the part of it that I get the most out of is waiting for what that all is going to mean. Obviously this is a Jason Todd archetype. This is, and as we learn more about Skulldigger, he is very much in the mode of Jason Todd, who becomes the Red Hood in Batman's universe, and is much like the Batman version of the Punisher. And so in that way, I love the way they build on that, and we get to see the Bruce Wayne character a little later as well, and what Lemire wants to do with that. So this opening bit plays on all of that crime alley classic. This is all it's missing is the pearls, right? Where are the white pearls falling all over the ground? Like that's all that's really missing.
Any, like she just got her bag.
I didn't see any pearls on the ground. That's really all that's missing, right?
The groceries are in place of the pearls.
Yeah, right.
Groceries for the pearls. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess the skull motif is the only thing that really gives me the Punisher vibe.
Of course.
Well, but he
doesn't really use guns or anything.
No.
I mean,
for me, the Punisher thing comes from that he kills. Like he's
just violent.
Like, he's just a little more violent. It's not the gun thing. It's that he's actually like finishing. He's judge, jury, and executioner on these guys instead of send them to Arkham for the 4,572nd time, and then we get like from Batman. No, I mean I feel like it very much. He's telling you on the first page that what this is going to be. Like John talked about that you've read enough Batman that it's kind of predictable. And for the most part, it is with just a little bit of like you said, a little bit of the Black Hammer twist. But yeah, this first page tells you exactly what this whole story is going to be. This, and I don't know if like in the trade or in the original issues, you get this other panel of the two of them together.
Oh yeah.
Love like that. To kick off the book or not, but like
it's like a cover, right? Or
I think it's the variant cover or whatever.
I need that. I need that.
Like this whole thing, the kid, the gun, and then you turn it. I guess the first 2 pages, and then he's standing there, and it's like, okay, we know this is exactly what this is going to be.
Tacoma, to your point, I think sometimes it's hard to know that these trades are part of Black Hammer. They just have this little thing at the top sometimes from the world of Black Hammer. And this one is more separate from the Black Hammer universe than anything that I have read up to this point. So it's definitely hard. And there have been moments where I missed a trade in this run and went back later and had to find it because I was like, because it just didn't look like a Black Hammer book.
Yeah.
So it's not on you. It happens a ton.
Yeah. And I will say, you guys talked about the art. It is an interesting, because it's a little more cartoony than
cartoon. Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking. More like comic strip, newspaper cartoony. Yeah. Particularly when you're not in the evening stuff, like when you're not in him on patrol. But then you get panels that like this, pages that are like this, but then you also get, like a little more creative, like when you get to the action sequences or this whole thing with Grim Jim with the papers, and so it's simple but very it's very like it's very fluid in the way it goes through the book. Like he doesn't just stick to one. Like, obviously, it's one style, like the faces and that kind of stuff are one style throughout. But he really mixes up how he does the paneling and, for telling different parts of the story. And I do think it's very effective. I don't know that I would say it's... I mean, I think it is great art because it is effective with the story.
Yeah.
But
obviously there's going to be, when that type of art comes along, you get David Mazzucchelli vibes because his art style is very similar as far as like not a ton of detail. It's just very much a sharp edge to a lot of the characters. So he's the gentleman that did Year One and he did Daredevil Born Again. And it does have vibes of that. But for me, it's almost more like Batman the Animated Series. Like it gives me more of that vibe to it, where even the villain Grim Jim gives me like he looks like the Killer Croc in the animated show, the shape of his bald head and the
Killer Croc.
I totally got vibes of that version of Killer Croc, and a lot of this gives me feels like Batman the Animated Series for me.
Yeah.
And that's a huge compliment. I love the show,
of course.
But obviously, again, it has that Black Hammer twist to it, right?
More violent than the.
So what we see though is that the kid gets, sent off to an orphanage, basically a home, and it's like, and sort of the detective here that we get introduced to, really only cares about him in the fact that she's trying to like put Skulldigger away.
Mm-hmm.
Like she sees him as a vigilante, and we get our initial introduction here to her captain, who is kind of a very interesting for me, like a dark side reflection of Jim Gordon in the terms of how, like, you think about how Jim breaks all the rules for Batman, and how, like, if you were a really straight narrow by the book cop, like,
how could you possibly let that guy operate in your city?
Yeah, like you would be where she is. Like, you're ridiculous, Captain. This is nuts that you're like turning the other way on this Skulldigger or this Batman. Like,
later we get that scene with that cop where he's like, because he's doing what needs to get done. Like you can see that, like he's clearly been holding back what he's not allowed to say about why he's loves this guy. Like, he's happy that he's out there doing this.
Yeah.
And anyone get? I mean, I hope you did, because Gotham Central. This is Renee Montoya. We have Renee Montoya right here, right?
So it's very much Montoya, and although Montoya is like at times has been more reluctant with the bats than Gordon, but she has obviously embraced them to a degree. This person is not.
It's early era Montoya, right?
Yeah.
So Justin, if you don't know Renee Montoya,
I know her name
now, but she was a Gotham City cop, and in the series Gotham Central, she's like one of the central police officers that we see. She's a lesbian, and she gets a lot of issues in her department because of the relationship she has with the female partners that she's got. And so there's an archetype there that I think this character Reyes is built on.
I see.
Well, and she's actually now currently she's the commissioner. Like he's retired, so she's actually back in the commissioner now. So in Gotham, was
she introduced like Harley Quinn? Was she introduced in the animated series and then brought into the comics?
No, she was in the comics first.
Renee appeared. I can't remember when. I have the issue, and I'm now blanking.
Late 80s. I want to say like 87, 88, somewhere in there.
But she became popular, obviously, in Gotham Central.
But she was very much a minor, very minor, just another kind of. It was a cop that was actually named, but it wasn't she wasn't a main. She was like Bullock's partner for a while, which is what they did. Like in the animated,
Bullock, obviously a big part of the animated show.
I just saw her name. She was mentioned in the recent Gotham Year One stuff that's just coming out right now.
Yeah, because she's the commissioner of the police department.
Oh, okay. So that's what that story is. Okay.
Yeah.
No. Or no, that's the Gotham Year One thing is set in the past.
It's early, right?
Oh, gotcha. No, it's what's the other one that there's another one that's like
Nightwing. She's
the blue wall. Gotham, the blue wall. She's the
commissioner
in that one. There's two
they're both going
Gotham comics right now being published.
Interesting.
Shocker.
Yeah. So the other thing we get introduced to is we get introduced to our villain, our Grim Jim. And I love how it's very much the Joker in the fact that he's in, which we've met from Sherlock Frankenstein, he's in that prison or whatever, the asylum or what, I forget what they call that place.
With the conquistador.
Yes, conquistador. Yeah. I was like, I know this guy. Yeah.
He's just like hanging out, and then it's like, oh, something interesting came across. Time to escape. you know.
Tell him I'm going to escape now.
He's like, I'm out.
Yeah, I'm going to escape now.
Yeah,
it seems like, so what did you guys think of the introduction of Grim Jim just as a villain, Daryl?
Grim Jim,
I mean, we met him briefly in Dr. Frankenstein.
Right.
Yeah, I seem to remember him. He's interesting. I would like to know more about him. I guess he's kind of immortal. He must be like he has some kind of paranormal thing about him that's made him somewhat immortal, I guess. It seems like he's just chilling in prison, just like biding his time until something, comes up there. He's like, I'm ready to go. And then he just like gets out,
Oh, there's something interesting going on. So,
which I guess is kind of Joker like too. The Joker will just hang out in Arkham until he decides he's ready to go do something. And then he just, makes his way out the door. I will say, as soon as they introduced this, the guy running for mayor here that Grim Jim was all interested in, and they mentioned he had a sidekick, I knew immediately where a lot of this was going, right away.
Yep.
So, but the other twist I did not see coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they do that when he's watching the TV news, right?
And they put the alley rat's head right next to Skulldigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty obvious at that point. You're like,
they weren't hiding the fact that that this was he was that guy's former sidekick. Yeah,
right.
That was the clues there were very much like in your face.
Yeah.
Zero subtlety.
Yeah.
Especially
John, what do you think? Oh, go ahead, Daryl. Sorry.
I was just saying, especially in the second issue, it was like, it's like it was kind of subtle in the first issue, but by the second issue, they're like, they were prepping you for it. But there was like a second part to it that I wasn't quite prepared for.
No.
Which we can talk about when we get there.
Yeah. So, anybody else have any thoughts on Grim Jim before we get to the adoption?
I mean, Grim Jim is a somewhat bland villain in the sense that he's predicated on a bunch of other villains that he doesn't really get a chance to shine beyond being the thing that just moves the plot forward. The reality is that that he's a device more than a character, and that's maybe a flaw to the story, because the real drama is the soul of the kid, right? The dynamic of Skulldigger versus Detective Reyes, like that's the hero villain drama of this plot. And I think if you get into that and get into the fate of the kid, all the stuff with Grim Jim is just servicing that dynamic. And then in that way, it's a very entertaining plot device.
Yeah.
I kind of felt Reyes was kind of flat too. A lot of the time I was like, what exactly is her motivation? She was just like, why is she so obsessed with Skulldigger?
Right. I agree. I felt something.
Never really dove into that. And that bothered me for her character.
Yeah. Yeah. It felt like, I would agree with that, because it felt like they were missing, because they give you a little bit of her home life and that like things aren't the best because she's become so obsessed, but they don't give you even like they could have done it in 2 panels if he killed somebody or something that or there was a case he was working on, and because he interfered there was nothing to put her motivation other than he's a vigilante that kills and she's trying to be a good cop. That it's like she's the
so
by the book cop.
I don't want to jump too far ahead, but for me, they give us those 3 panels. It's not a ton.
I know what you're talking about.
You know,
she talks about her history. Yeah,
she talks about just show her dad beating her.
Yeah,
it's 3 panels,
and that's it's much later in the book though, too.
I think for me, at least, that was enough just to highlight her mental state of like all the way along. The idea of a kid being taken advantage of, the kid being put into the system, the kid, I think for her, she just is reliving a lot of stuff with this kid and blaming a lot of it on Skulldigger. But that, for me, I agree. It's not much.
It's towards the end of the book.
It's saved.
It was a little earlier.
I think, like what Justin's saying, I think it's because it comes so late that by the time you see that, you're just kind of like, I don't know, like you kind of shrug it off, like, okay, here's her deal. But it needed to be established a little sooner.
So for me, that's a different motivation than what I was talking about, though.
Okay.
That's her motivation for trying to save the kid.
Mm-hmm.
Where was her motivation? But before because initially she's not interested in the kid other than he can help her put Skulldigger away because she thinks the kid saw him kill those two, the guy who killed his parents. Like, that's her only interest. Like, she sends him home, doesn't think about him again until he disappears. And she realizes that she thinks Skulldigger took him. Like, so there's a secondary motivation later for why she puts so much on the line trying to help the kid that I think goes to the panels you're talking about, John. But there was no, like, her initial obsession with Skulldigger was never explained.
Right. For me, it's part and parcel. I think she views Skulldigger as a murdering bully and views him in the same light that she would cast him as her dad. She's casting the kid as her. Like, for me, it's all like the snake eating its own tail. But But again, to Daryl's point, if it comes so late that you feel like at that point it's not filling the need for the reader of understanding the character, then that's a problem, right?
Yeah.
I feel like I would have connected a little bit more or cared a little bit more just if it hit earlier, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So Skulldigger comes and takes this kid because he didn't look away, and it's basically its justification to steal this orphan and indoctrinate him into a life of vigilantism.
Right.
But what we see, and this is also jumping ahead, is we find out it's kind of the same way he became what he is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's more to it, but yeah, so it's not like he's and this is where I got Red Hood vibes. It's like where I thought it was more Red Hood than Batman, because it was like repeating, not necessarily the mistake, but yeah, sort of the mistake and treatment of what he went through. He's repeating it with another.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, he is Robin, and now he's become his own Batman, right? I mean, that's ultimately what's happening here, right? He survived a gold and silver age era, and it doesn't apply anymore in his mind, and now he is applying his own methodology in a modern era.
Yeah.
And taking in another kid under his wing to show him the ropes of a modern era.
And we get the in issue 2, we get the fun training sequence of of beating up the kids to training. We get this. Yeah. So Justin, what did you think of the whole training sequence and how he's training this kid? And they're just dynamic here that they're building.
Wait, sorry, oh yeah, with the red, where it fades red and black. Yeah. So, well, I was gonna say I was getting vibes from even a couple pages before this, where the kid first decides, he's like, "You want to come with me?" Like, he's narrating to himself, "If I had the chance to do this again, like, would I do this? What do I, I don't realize what I'm getting into at this point." I got the vibes of Robin year one, JP, when we had broken down that and talked about with Kavi, questioning, like, is this the right move for my life as a kid, Robin, coming from his perspective. I like that they did that, or, had that version of that kind of in here. And the kid, but it's kind of opposite, because he realizes, like, that this guy's really not good either. And he learns more of that down the road. But yeah, this is
very much a Robin year one vibe as well. Yes.
Yeah. Just overall. So I mean, I like the fight scenes that we see here. We get a little bit more detail on his. It's all in the kid's brain, right? And it's all coming to his narrative. What he thinks of all this. He understands that the guy's not going to let him leave until he can prove himself, and he wants to use that anger from his parents, kind of guided to killing him, but really to prove that he can fight and all that stuff. But I do like the color, kind of, I guess, whatever you want to call it, techniques here, or even this panel. Like, I just picture like a montage, some sort of musical background of them as they're training
montage. You gotta
you gotta have that for sure. So yeah, that was cool layout.
But yeah, when they're in the basement of this butcher shop, like where his lair. Yeah, that's all like red or white, and the lighting is very, underground and harsh, and it's very clear that's where they're at. Like they light it very particularly. That no, you guys, that we're down here in the hole.
Yeah.
So the other like side plot that John mentioned earlier is we get kind of the news. It appears to be what causes Grim Jim to break out is that there's this old superhero that was kind of a minor superhero, but people knew he was, who's decided to run for office. With the mayor, I forget now, or was it governor?
He was mayor of the city, I think.
Yeah, he's running for mayor. And like we realize we don't know initially, but we realize there's very much a history going on here of the Crimson Fist is who this guy used to be.
Mm-hmm.
And we do get a fun where they change the art at the start of like issue 3 when we get his little flashback. They kind of change it again, not necessarily like style, but just like the color and the lighting, and becomes even more Batman the Animated Series, I feel like, here.
Well, it gives me a Watchmen vibe too, because we have like the journal with the lines and the which is very much like Rorschach's journal in some ways.
But he's also a little bit like designed like Hooded Justice.
Yes, from Watchmen. Yeah. Great point.
So we start to get that he and this mayor candidate and Grim Jim have a history. And so what did you guys think of like the mayor, the Crimson Fist, and his role here in this story? John, I'll let you go. Go ahead, Daryl. What were you saying?
I mean, it was a function of the larger narrative. So it's like, I think playing into it with him, like you were saying, he is kind of like the aged Bruce Wayne, but he's coming out. Of course, there was that whole thing at the Star Wars with the two detectives. Like, did you hear about so and so? He came out and like, so you think we know? All y'all know each other? And it's like, no, he's coming out as a cape. I thought that was a funny little sequence. I think it was in the first or second issue, but anyway, like just that he's coming out and he wants to do it through like a more. I guess he's still wanting to make a change, but obviously knows he can't physically go out and fight crime, and must be thinking like I can do this through politics, still have an impact. And coming out blew up in his face.
Very much so. But again, I think it's really just all of this is setting up the moment, because Skulldigger goes to like helping. We don't know necessarily why, but goes to fight Grim Jim. And, and right off the bat, you see that they have a relationship as well, although you don't fully understand it initially. But it's really just about setting up this moment of him going, you know what? I've been training long enough. I'm going to go help him. Him going and getting his costume, even though it's been maybe 2 weeks or something.
Yes,
I'm ready to become Skeleton Boy.
Yes, I've been training for a whole week. I'm going to become.
Or what
all
about?
You need is a montage.
What about exactly? What about the discussion of the name? where he's like, what? I've been thinking about my name. Like he really was into that idea. And he's like, well, they can call you whatever they want. It's your name. You pick it. Like, and he's really.
Well, I do love that you get the whole like this is a guy that. Willing to kill, willing to do all this stuff, and then he's like, the kid says a bad word, and he's like,
"Watch your language,
watch your mouth." And he's like, "Wait, you beat people to death with a metal skull, and you're worried about my language?"
Yeah, that was great.
We take out scum. We don't talk like them, and it's like a very grandpa's thing to say.
I love it.
I thought of Abraham Slam when I heard that.
Kind of like something Abraham would say. Yeah. Like the old guy, I mean, it's something you would hear from like, not even my parents, like my grandparents, kind of thing. Like,
we're bringing it back. We're gonna start using that.
But the whole like the kid like going, I'm going out to help. That's like Jason Todd did the same thing.
Yeah,
and then Tim Drake did it too.
Yeah, they go and help beforehand before the bat says they're ready. I mean, even if you read like some of the Robin Year One stuff. Dick doesn't listen either and goes out. That's when he goes anyway, kind of thing. And
there's some good conversations about like you know, when he takes the mask off and the kid's like, he's shocked at all the scars, and he's like, you'll get your own. He's like, no, I won't. I'll be too fast. He's like, you'll get it. But it's what you do after the mask.
After, yeah.
Like, oh, that's pretty badass.
Nice little tight.
There's some good lines in there.
Oh, there's a ton of like. I mean, it's really well written. Like there's a ton of good stuff, and you see like when he shows up, like she instantly knows who it is, who the kid is.
When you're talking about when they try to stop Grim Jim from killing the mayoral candidate.
And he shows up, and Reyes runs up on the stage to try to this great panel of him upside down, very much trying to give you upside doing a flip, throwing it accurately, throwing the stick. I mean, could you be any more Dick Grayson right here? This kid again, never done anything. Doesn't look athletic at all, and has been training for a week.
Yeah,
he's obviously more athletic than they let on to start with.
Than they let on with his dumpy build. Well, he's not he's just I love the bowl cut too. It's very 1980s.
Yeah, it's like something out of Stranger Things, like Will on Stranger Things.
Yeah, it is very much. Even though this is supposed to be 90s, I think.
Oh, I like this panel here when he introduces himself,
the flash bomb,
and it's flash. Yeah, and how the panels actually fade, I think is so cool to just give you that experience of what Reyes is going through with the explosion.
The whole fight sequence is done really well. I like the touches of the black and white, like I was saying before, on on this page.
Yeah, that page.
It's like the black and white is bleeding over the panels. It's cool, like the 2-page spread like that. You can see it like that. So how it bleeds over onto the color panels too.
Yeah.
For sure. And just that whole page where he where she's trying to talk the kid down or whatever. With you, why would I go with you? You have no idea who I am. And he on Skeleton Boy or whatever. But we also, at the end of this, because we've seen the way Grim Jim talked to Skulldigger, we get the reveal that, which is not really, by the time they give it to you, it's pretty well telegraphed as well, that Jim's his father. What did you think about that, them going there with their relationship and making that part of the storyline? I mean, obviously, we get both reveals here. We get that he was officially Alley Rat, and that and then also Grim Jim's his dad. What did that do for you, Justin? What did it
Yeah, I wasn't. I definitely wasn't expecting the father aspect of it. That to me was, I guess, the extra bit that I didn't see coming. I remember. I remember kind of being confused. I remember reading it late at night, but I was trying to go back because I was just not sure if I read that right or understanding that with all the different characters. So the older guy that's running for mayor is the guy in this suit here in this
Crimson Fist.
The
Crimson Fist, right? And as this flashback goes, he's showing as he opens this door at the end of this issue to show that's Grim Jim, right? That's sitting
that's Skulldigger.
That's Skulldigger, the little kid.
Okay.
The little kid in the closet is one of the illegitimate children of Grim Jim that's been scattered across this drug haven.
I see, and then he takes him. Okay. So I was a little mixed up with that still.
So, well, to me, they started telegraphing just by the way Grim Jim started talking to him when he arrived. He's like,
he calls him my boy, my son.
Yeah. He's he's very much there's a relationship there that Skulldigger doesn't want any part of, and it's okay. And you'd already seen they were telling this backstory of Crimson Fist going after him in one of his hideouts. It's okay, yeah. And so I felt like that was very, very obvious is where they were going there.
But it wasn't as obvious as the whole
the Alley Rat.
that he was the alley rat. And I think that the way they double whammied you at the same time with the full reveal of him being alley rat, but also like, oh, you saw this coming, but did you get this? And so it's kind of like a double whammy. And they didn't try to string that out over like 2 issues or something like, oh, well, here it is. Here's the part that you kind of knew. And then you go an issue. And then here's like an extra thing. It was like, we're going to hit you both with the same, which I thought was better because it was like a, oh moment for me. Yeah. I mean, I can see where you said they were telegraphing it, but that was just a few pages before. Whereas like, him being the alley rat was, you picked up on that as soon as they started talking about the mayor who had a sidekick at one point. Yeah. And like, they just kept showing it with Skulldigger, like with the news reports, and he had a sidekick and Skulldigger watching it. And like, then there's the whole story of him taking on a side. You're like, oh, I get it. He was a sidekick and now he's taking on a new sidekick. That was all like early on. Yeah. You can see that. But I think this, like, the twist of like, he was a villain's illegitimate son, as John said. Right. Was the extra twist, even if they did foreshadow it a few pages before.
Dude, I love that cover that you showed. This one here. Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. That's definitely one of those. I mean, there's some really good covers for this particular book. I mean,
but I would have liked more of that costume, actually. There's not enough of that alley rat.
Alley rat.
Like in motion and stuff. There's a couple panels, but not a ton.
Yeah, really, yeah. There's
even the colors.
One, like that one, and there's like a couple other panels, but yeah, you don't get much of him as alley rat. No, for sure. The other thing is we see Reyes. We get like both at the event and later, we get Reyes, and we get more of the whole, the dark side of Jim Gordon's, allowing Batman to operate, and this guy what that, because you can totally see her side, and like that. Yeah, he's allowing this vigilante to run free because he's,
doing his job,
doing the job that they're not sort of allowed to do. He can break the rules they can't break. It's really, and the difference here versus Gordon has always been very clear with Batman about breaking certain rules. Like, he lets him bend the rules and break a few of them, but not like the big ones. Mm-hmm. And whereas Skulldigger clearly breaks all the rules, he's,
he just lets him go. Yeah.
So there is that bit of difference. But ultimately, this kind of we see, this whole, I don't know if this is the third issue. It's pretty much all about Grim Jim trying to find out where he's at, where Skulldigger's at from Tex, from the mayoral candidate. Reyes finding out where Skulldigger's at, like that they're, actively tearing up a bar down on the waterfront or whatever, because they're actively searching for Grim Jim. And ultimately leads to this whole confrontation at the butcher shop of, we see what happened to poor Tex.
Oh man, I voted Tex.
I voted Tex.
96.
Yeah.
Yeah, even the torture scenes of him cutting off all the fingers.
Oh yeah,
that was brutal.
Yeah,
that was brutal. Well, like, I didn't realize at first too, but like they showed him cutting off fingers, and then they kind of pull back, and it looks like a whole arm is gone.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. His like forearm or whatever, or. Yeah.
Well, maybe not. Maybe
not. I think it's his angle. Now that I see it. Yeah.
Now that I'm zooming in on it.
But still,
we can't see the other hand. So I mean, Lord only knows.
I think it's just all his fingers are gone.
Fingertips.
Yeah, maybe so.
Well, yeah, I guess in that other shot you can kind of see he's got a stump or something.
There's 5 fingers on the ground.
Yeah.
Maybe
it looks like all the fingers off both hands have been cut off in the image of him. Yeah.
It's graphic either way.
It's very graphic. Right? But I will say, like, one of my favorite panels here in this whole sequence is, so they come back and Grim Jim's got a gun on him, and then Reyes comes in and's got a gun on him. Yep. And that panel there.
Oh man, yeah.
It's just like stylistically, and the artist here is, I forget who the artist is. I looked it up.
It's Tansy Zonjic.
Who I don't know. But he is very, I talked about it a little bit at the beginning, but very flexible. Like he does, very straightforward, cartoony stuff, but he uses light really well. He uses, you know, there's some versatility to this guy that is very impressive in some of the panels we get.
Yeah. And like you said before, JP, especially when it's the darker panels versus the lighter, like there's a distinct difference between the two. And I'm sure like in his art style, he's like, that's in his, you know, the forefront of his mind that he's making that look the way it is. Just cool.
So ultimately the sequence of the butcher shop is Grim Jim appears to kill Skulldigger and Reyes appears to kill Grim Jim, which we find out, we quickly find out you can't do either one. They're both basically immortal. They're going to heal. But she takes off with the kid. Yeah. And what is his name? It's right at the, I guess at the end they give his name, right? Matthew. So they take off with Matthew, or Skeleton Boy. And like, it's clear she doesn't know what she's doing at this point. She's in over her head.
Totally.
Like, she's trying to get this kid out. This is when we finally, I forget exactly where in here we get the panels with her and her dad.
It's towards the end. Yeah.
It's not even, we don't even get that yet, do we?
Right.
Well, we get it at the end of this sequence.
Yeah.
With her in the car trying to run with him.
Yeah.
Not knowing where to go. We get it
after she's on the phone with her girlfriend.
Yeah.
So real quick, the panels. Oh, go ahead, Daryl.
I just wanted to bring attention to the Sam Keith variant cover.
Oh yeah, good call. Yep. I need these. These are great.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Really cool. Yeah, no, those are great.
No, go ahead.
The story part.
I was just gonna say. So before we get to, or John mentioned, like she calls her girlfriend, says she's in over her head. Before those, the panels before that, where these are some of my favorite panels, is the little kid's face when he's arguing with her and saying, she goes, "I'm not kidnapping you, I'm saving you," and he goes, "Saving me." He saved me. Skulldigger saved me. His face there. I know it's like, I don't know, cartoony or what. I don't know, but it works so well. And I don't know, something about these panels of this little kid I really liked.
I want to, like, this is sort of skipping to the end, but I wanted to have
he's like cute, he's a cute little kid.
We'll come back to that. I want to sort of put a little pin in his statement there because of how this whole plays out. And think about, we'll discuss it when we get to the ending. Is he not right? That Skulldigger ultimately did, because otherwise, if Skulldigger doesn't come from him, otherwise none of this happens, and he's just stuck in this home with nobody to adopt it or look after it.
Yeah,
so, I thought he meant like he saved me from the criminal and I would have died.
Well, I think he means that too, but like if you go back to his narration when he's in the home.
Yeah.
Before he comes, he's really talking about saving him from that place.
For sure. There's obviously layers to it, right?
There's layers to it. But yeah, so she's basically taking this kid and on the run from these two monsters, not knowing what she's going to do. And she's trying to help this kid. She doesn't know how. He doesn't want her help, like at least at this stage.
Right.
And yeah, you do finally get what John talked about. He's like, "Oh yeah, what do you know?" He's like, "You don't know anything. You don't know anything about my parents, about him. I know more than you think." And then you finally get the 3 panels.
It's really just 2, but yeah.
Yeah, it's 2, and her face. Yeah, you're right. It's 2 panels.
Yeah.
And of like men like her, like him. I know the pain, and. She finally starts to like break down,
show this emotional side.
That like he's basically been unemotional through all of this, with all his parents, with being adopted by this vigilante. What this whole sequence is just of them in the car. I mean, it goes on for pages of them arguing and talking in the car.
It's emotional.
Yeah, very emotional.
I mean, she's emotional. She finally gets through to him. And then, of course, like, as soon as she does, a skull breaks the windshield. But,
I freaking love it.
Boom.
What a great splash page.
Yeah.
Yep.
Only it's not who you think it is. It's actually worse. But what did you guys think of this whole sequence in the car with them on the run? John, I'll let you go first this time.
I mean, it's for me. It's like to the comments I was making earlier. It's the core of the story. Is the soul of the kid, right? Like where is his allegiance going to fall? What is best for this kid? And you have two kind of, I guess you could say, like gender archetypes here. You have the female character who's coming from a place of empathy and love, and the male character who's coming from a place of bury your feelings and do the job and do the and let your anger fuel you, right? You have these female and male archetypes here, and they're both playing the angels on the shoulder of the kid, and that's the real hero villain story here. Grim Jim is a side character. He's a ficus plant in the corner by comparison to what's really at stake here, which seems way more important than whatever Grim Jim is doing. As scary as he is and as intense as he is, it almost feels secondary to the emotional weight that we're dealing with.
Well, even he kind of tells you that later, because like when he and Skulldigger have their later showdown in the thing, he's like, we can do this forever. We're immortal. Like Grim Jim, none of this is serious to Grim Jim. He's like, he saw
it's typical Batman Joker style.
Joker. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. Let's do this forever. That's that's his whole thing. Daryl, what did you think of the whole car sequence of her running with him and their conversation?
Like I was saying, it's super emotional, and the kid himself goes through so many different. He goes from like, being mad that he's being taken from his new adopted father that he wants to be with. But then as they go through this, he kind of has a little breakdown where he talks about, like, when I saw that man's head in the butcher shop, now I can't get that out of my head. And that's kind of his point of like, do I really want to be doing this? I mean, his eyes are full of tears, and you see the page I'm talking about?
Yeah.
He's like, shut up. And then he's like, I can't get that out of my head. Like, I can't stop seeing that. And then, she's like, it's okay. Of course, then they're interrupted by the skull on the windshield, who you think it's going to be Skulldigger at first, but then it's Grim Jim. And can we give a nod to the tracksuit mafia?
Yes. Yes. Daryl, I wasn't going to say it. And somebody did. Yes. Hawkeye shout out. I love it.
And then I love that his like airship looks like a giant bomb too.
So Joker-esque, right?
Yeah.
You can almost you picture like a giant smile on the front.
Yeah. Even how he comes down in the ladder. Even in the earlier event, he did that when he dropped down.
Yeah,
it's just such a Gotham-y event as a whole. Someone making a speech and then Joker ruining it.
Yeah, he's very much a Gotham villain. I mean, even like when he shows up before, when he's monologuing, when he's got poor Crimson Fist, and like he's on stage and showing off and stuff. Like, he's very much over the top Joker kind of thing going on. Justin, but what did you think about the conversation before we get into kind of the finale here?
Yeah, so like as you guys said, like definitely an emotional moment, and especially for the kid as he's trying to figure out, even just having his moment of really understanding his parents dying and everything else. Like he didn't really have time to
deal with it,
right? Nothing like that. So that was him really getting some of that stuff out, especially screaming, shut up. As she says, it's okay to be angry, but it won't bring them back. They never did give him time to address that, or he never gave himself time to address that. So that was an emotional side. I still wish that the girl Reyes' story came a bit earlier with that. As we mentioned before, I think would have just hit a lot heavier. Like it's heavy, obviously, for what it is, but for where I was feeling for her earlier, I didn't have that same emotional connection to her motives and to what she was doing and why was it so important and why was she so dedicated to her job and all this other stuff, or caring even about the her girlfriend and all this other stuff. So that fell flat to me, which ultimately fell flat then towards the end as we get to the end of that and how things do end. It's still, I don't know, I wasn't all in enough with her specifically.
Yeah, I feel like she needed, like, we're getting flashbacks for Skulldigger.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like if you're truly, because really the book is, like John said, is about these two characters trying to influence this kid.
Mm-hmm.
We needed her more. We needed her backstory. Maybe didn't need as much, but it needed more.
Yeah,
like, and that's where
just
I got
earlier, or just
like
earlier, even.
where she's coming from, like
Mm-hmm.
in order to like just balance out, because it's really the story of them. It's her and Skulldigger. It's not like the kid is to a certain degree like it's their story about how they got to where they are to try to influence this kid to get him on a path.
Mm-hmm.
And she just needed more backstory for me for this to completely work the way to be as good as it could have been.
Yeah.
It's still really good, but I think there definitely needed to be a little more.
Just a small punch up of her character would have
Yeah
added a little something extra. But
I will say I like the coloring, the usage of the purple versus yellow in these two panels, or two. I guess they're technically like full pages or splash pages, however they're laid out. But just wanted to point out the coloring on that. I thought that was cool.
The coloring in here, there's a lot of like mood coloring. Like when they're driving initially, it's all like dark and yellow, and then it becomes kind of pinkish, purpley as the sun's coming up, and then it starts being yellow, and even you get them when they're in the later. So after Grim Jim takes him, and then her and Skulldigger go after him, like there's the red and the blues, and like they used a lot of mood coloring, and you get this whole thing of I talked about before. You get Grim Jim and Skulldigger just fighting, and the kid's just a pawn to make Skulldigger fighting for Grim Jim. It's like, well, here's the good news. You have my blood. We can never die. We'll never die. We can just do this little dance again and again and again and again. You know, the Joker line.
Yeah.
And then he runs off. But ultimately what it's setting up is
that black and white page.
The 2 pages before you get to the black and white, which is her saying, you don't have to go with. He's like, Skeleton Boy, come on, we can catch him. And him looking at him without the helmet on, because Grim's been taking it off. It's just her going, you don't have to. I can't help I am. She's like, yes, I can't help what I am. Yes, you can. You always can. And you get this page. Him in the middle of what he's going to do. And I'll be honest, like, so what do you guys think about how this ends? Before I say it, what do you think about how it ends? Justin, I'll let you go first. So what happens after that? What did you think about it?
Like seeing the kid make his decision, right? And ultimately go with Reyes and his girl. So that, again, mixed feelings, because I don't like it. Ultimately, I don't like that. I don't like that he goes with them for a couple of reasons. One, I think that I want him to go. I was hoping it'd end with him going back and being the sidekick, and I hope that we were going to see more of these two, which we may still very much potentially do so. But it did feel like the story's over, like the duo is no more, and so to me that was kind of a disappointment. And then the other thing, it just goes back to what we were talking about with Reyes. Like, I just didn't have enough of an attachment to Reyes and her girlfriend and Reyes's reasoning for things. Or I don't know. I guess I just didn't care about her enough to have the emotion of, oh, nice kid, like you're going with Reyes, you know. I don't know. It just didn't. I guess it just didn't do it for me, or it didn't. I don't know. I just felt disappointed. And that's how it ended. Like, and it just ends with the kid there. So that's kind of how I felt.
I'm pretty much I'm on the same page as Justin here. I didn't like. I mean, it was fine, but like it didn't feel right because of, like we said, there wasn't enough build up of the Reyes character, or really her girlfriend here, or wife, whatever they are. Yeah. There really wasn't enough to like really establish like, why do they need this kid in their life? Bring them together, because they looked like they were already having a troubled relationship, and then we're like, oh, and now you get a kid at the end. You know,
it's like let's get a pet, let's get a dog together. You know, like it'll make things better. You know?
Now we have a pet human to like help bring our relationship back together. And then the coloring changes, and it's like all bright again. Even the girlfriend has like bright pink hair now.
Yeah,
she didn't have that earlier on. So, yeah, I didn't love those last couple of pages after the choice was made. It didn't ruin the book for me. I still think it was a pretty a good read overall, and like all the Batman analogies we've made to it and stuff. But yeah, I wasn't that last couple of page ending just didn't really satisfy. Although the last page of Skulldigger sitting alone with his glow in the dark equipment and the TVs and stuff all busted up, that resonated more to me than the kid going with Reyes.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought that was more powerful than the kid going.
Yeah, and he's talking about this is the last panel is Skulldigger on his own holding the kid's helmet. You can see his own helmet in the background. But yeah. John, what about you? Where do you fall on how this ends?
I mean, it may just be that I love Renee Montoya so much that that Reyes hits with me on a different level. Like Renee Montoya is one of my favorite side characters, and so for me, like I probably just put all of the feelings I have for her like onto this other surrogate character in the story. So it's hard for me to maybe separate that. So the ending works for me, but it only works for me because I feel like this is not the end. So it feels to me very strongly as a part one of an ongoing story. I feel very much like this is not a happy ending. I do not think that couple is a good fit. I do not. We're clearly seeing I think it's Amanda. Is in a really rough place in her life. Every time we see her, she looks like she's in like depression. She's like balled up and seems to be suffering. I very much feel like this is a rash decision by Detective Reyes and not going to work out really well. So for me, this feels like part one of a trilogy in some way, and the catharsis or the issues with Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy are still yet to play out.
I mean, that would be nice. I mean, if it plays out like that, but we haven't seen any of the other.
No, we haven't.
Black Hammer stuff have like a second book. Like that.
Not at this point.
So this is interesting because I completely disagree with all three of you. like I thought it was super abrupt. When I turned the page and that's what was happening, I was like, wait, it's over? But for me, it works on a couple different levels. I don't know that like he's gonna end up like the third, like necessarily that's gonna work. But he went with him, and this is I'll go back to the question that he like the time, like, and he talks about the time they had together, like because he wasn't dealing with his grief in any productive way.
Absolutely.
And he went with him thinking that's what he wanted. He wanted vengeance. He wanted payback. He wanted to be like this. And what he saw when he talks to her in the car about the severed head, and he's changing the thing, and he's like he realizes she gives him an option. She's like, no, you don't have to live this. And he realizes that's not what he wants. It's not what he wants to be. Like, and you think about the ridiculousness that is Robin. Like, Robin is, depending on which version and which depiction, it starts out anywhere from like 9 to 13.
There's no universe where that decision to take a little kid and turn him into a crime fighter is a good one. There's it doesn't exist except in the Bat universe.
I love the characters.
Yeah. Oh, I'm obsessed. Absolutely love it.
Story.
Yeah.
But
there's no logic to it.
There's no logic to it. And this kid being confronted and making, John talked about the two devils on his shoulder, making the right choice to be a kid, to like try to like have some sort of life that he can. And you see, to me, Skulldigger, who went through the same thing when he was a kid, like he didn't really have that choice.
No.
His father was a monster.
He had 6 years of living in a closet and being beaten and hearing curse words, which, by the way, there's a throwback to the curse words thing where
Tex was the one who told him,
the kid curses at Grandpa Grim Jim, and Grim Jim's like, talking about. Firstly, love your name, great choice.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of swearing. I also approve of
Yeah,
that. There's a great comment
was a good humor.
on the world that maybe Skulldigger grew up in, and the hatred he has for that life that he was forced to live.
Yeah.
And now the kid getting to choose, because the kid grew up in a loving home, has a glimpse of what it should be like. I don't know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but for me, like Skulldigger on that last panel, like he was hoping to have someone to share his life, but he's not. I don't see him going back and like trying to get that kid to like
go
back into that world.
I don't see that at all. But I also see that world falling apart, and the little kid is making a really good choice, but it's not a choice you make one time. He's going to have to make that choice every day when he reads a newspaper or sees a bully at school or whatever. He's going to have to make that choice again and again. And I do feel like he's been so emotionally scarred by his parents' death and the experiences with Skulldigger that he's going to break down and make the wrong choice. And that would, for me, is the second one.
Ever him becoming. So you guys are talking about like more stories. I don't think the choice may be that he chooses to do things, like makes mistakes and chooses to do that. I don't think the choice is ever going back to being Skeleton Boy, though. To me, I don't think that ever happens. But at least not until he's like an adult. Maybe he tries to do something at that point.
He gets stuck in limbo and he ages up, is what you're saying. And then,
but like.
Is that not it?
His doppelganger.
Overall, like, but my point was back to the ending for me. Like, I thought it was abrupt. I like turned the page. I'm like, wait, it's over. Like, like it was very abrupt. But if that's the choice he makes, it would be an abrupt end to the story.
Yeah.
Like,
there's no resolution to beat Grim Jim, obviously, right?
No, because like they just set up the whole thing. It's Grim Jim's whole thing is we could do this forever.
Yeah.
And like this was his opportunity to get out, and he did. And
exit stage left.
To me, he's out. Like, I don't need any more. Like, I'm okay. This is good enough.
But that's boring, JP. Don't you want to live that life of fighting crime and
that? Well, I would feel worse to read a story where he then makes the other choice again.
Yeah, it goes
after
back.
He's had a chance to get out
to live.
Oh, I would totally read that.
Isn't it kind of like?
I'd read the shit.
I'd read the shit.
Isn't it kind of like Hit Girl from the Kick-Ass books? Where like she's trained to be this like killer, like assassin sidekick, and then Big Daddy gets killed, and so it's like
she takes that off.
Then he tries to like transition her to being a normal kid, and of course the story continues, and that doesn't work out quite the way because people start coming after her. Now he wasn't in that life, and as deadly as she was, to where villains are going to come after
like
him.
15 minutes, and he saw horrible things, and everything went to crap.
Yep.
Like nothing went well while he was in there. There's no motivation for him to go back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because like he was literally on mission for a day.
I don't think he would go back. Like he would seek out going back to Skulldigger necessarily, but like John said, if he's like going to school and just sees things, that
he might try to help people.
There's like an injustice going on, and he knows like I've been trained to take care of this, and my stepmom or adopted mom or whatever is a police officer too, and he's going to have that morality in him to want to.
Well, I could see him like being a cop. I could see him being a cop or something, but I just don't think like he literally lived the life for less than 24 hours.
You're underestimating the power of the montage, man. You really got to respect it more than this. This is not. Haven't you seen Rocky IV? I mean, come on, man.
The montage it took like a week, and then he was a sidekick for less than 24 hours. And you guys think, and then chooses.
I'm going to make you watch Rocky IV just so you have a better respect for montages and what
gets captured and tortured. And
I can beat the Russians if I just like run through the snow and lift heavy pieces of wood. Like that's all it takes.
He needed a slow 6-pack of time. That's what.
All right,
see, Justin gets it.
Okay, so final thoughts on Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy. Justin, we'll let you go.
I hope that he comes back as a Nightwing-esque type of character as he's older, as you're saying, JP. You know, if he ends up, you know, biting the bullet and says, let me return to that. But if he's older, I'm saying if he, you know, as an adult, maybe he comes back as something like that. No, overall, like I said in the beginning, like I really enjoyed this. Yes, I do feel like some of it fell short to me, and how, again, my not being able to be attached to Reyes the way maybe some of you have. I think that was a big part of me being a little disappointed in the ending, but overall, I would definitely, you know, recommend this as a read. And like you guys said from the get, like this is a great one-off, you know, anybody could just jump in either way. One thing we didn't mention though with this series as a whole is I do like how subtle they do still sprinkle in some of the characters, like Abraham Slam was mentioned, Black Hammer was mentioned. So I like that, you know, for those of us, you know, who have been following through this whole time, it does still give us a little bit of something to say, oh yeah, that's right. Like it's still in this world.
They just remind you that this is the world.
Yeah, very subtle. Yeah. So I appreciate that. So, but yeah, I mean, overall, definitely I could see why this is high up on your guys' list for being, you know, one of your top favorites of, you know, the non-focused group, you know, story arcs or whatever. So yeah, I'm a fan.
Yep. Daryl.
Yeah, I liked it, like for all those same reasons. This could be an Astro City story, or this could be just a complete standalone, and you don't even need to know all those other names that they dropped. You just know that it's a world where other heroes existed, and you hear these names like, oh yeah, some heroes existed, and you know, and it's just like, here is this Batman Punisher-esque one, and we're just going to get that story. I mean, I think for, like John was saying though, if you have that connection to the characters that a lot of this is inspired from, and you get to project that onto the characters, you might get a little more out of it, out of those particular characters, I guess. Then maybe I know Montoya. I've not read like a ton of like Gotham PD and stuff with her in it. I know who she is in relation to Batman, but so I didn't really have that strong of a connection by projecting all that onto her. I felt that the Reyes character needed more in this story to connect to for her motivations throughout. But again, I would suggest this to anybody that's like, I've never read a Black Hammer thing, and you just be like, oh, well, here, read this one, you know, and see if you like this style of storytelling. And it's completely unrelated to the other Black Hammer stuff.
I was gonna say, I don't know that it's a great intro to the Black Hammer thing, because it's very much on its own. But yeah. Okay, John, final thoughts?
I mean, so do I need more from this particular story? No, I think you could definitely say this was the end and there's no sequel needed or whatever. Do I want more? Abso-freaking-lutely. I want a second volume of give me Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy Volume 2, and I'm going to buy it. I'm going to read it, and I'm going to love it. So the universe, I think, is thriving, and this is one of the best signs I've seen that like they can get beyond the main story and still find a lot to mine from this world. So in that way, yeah, I'm really this was the most enthusiastic I was finishing a story that didn't have, you know, Barbalian or Golden Gale or any of those characters.
Yeah. For me, again, I think this is could easily, like you guys said, could be a complete standalone. You don't need to know anything about Black Hammer to enjoy this. It doesn't need the name drops, other than it's just those couple of name drops is just to be like, yeah, we're in that universe, you know. I personally like if they came out with a volume 2, we would probably read it for this, and I would probably read it. But to me, the development we get from Matthew in this, like, I don't want to see a Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy Volume 2. I can see a Skulldigger Volume 2, like that I'd be okay with, but I don't need a Skulldigger and Skeleton Boy Volume 2. Or if they make Skeleton Boy like Robin, then we get Orphan number 2.0. You know, we get, you know.
Maybe Reyes has a new child.
Maybe we get Kelly Carey as a female.
What if Skeleton Boy takes on the Alley Rat persona?
Yeah, Alley Rat or something. But overall, I really enjoyed the heck out of it, and I know we were getting through most of. There's still quite a bit of Black Hammer we haven't got through yet, but we're getting through most of the side material at this point. So I want to thank the few people that hung out with us: Tacoma, Bobby, Jackson Roy Kirk was in here, Callie was in here for a little bit. There's still 6 people watching, so that's good. So thank you guys for hanging out. And I know it's getting late, so we're gonna call it right there. Later, everybody.
Cool. Later, gang.